emerging markets like ours than on big developed countries like the ones in the West. Of course, they will probably lose more jobs in those countries, but the society will benefit more because they have skills that will allow for humans to remain relevant regardless of how much AI takes over. Here, story is not the same, at least not yet. But what are we doing to get there?
What's our plan as a country? I mean, of course, if you have seen the communications minister putting out information that, oh, there's a framework we are developing, which is a good idea, because many countries have not had regulatory frameworks in place, and some are still trying to figure it out because they don't know the scope or whichever way they want to go about regulating this. There are several alternatives on the table. There are some insisting the Armageddonic approach is that regulate with a very tight fist to make sure that you don't leave any loopholes for exploration in the future and for abuse possibly. The other groupings are saying, since it's a fast evolving space, you need to make sure that you regulate as in for promotion and for development and for the evolution that's likely to happen in the space. Of course, abuse is possible, but to what extent are you likely to counter that and put it on the right pedestal? Let's not kid ourselves. There's a lot of even AI being used in this country. Not long ago, I realized that there's a polytechnic in the Republic of Ghana already teaching artificial intelligence as a course. Indeed, it is the case that our STEM schools are primarily also part of their course structure, artificial intelligence and other related areas, which means we are trying to build a base for it. The difficulty then is that what people have done 10, 15 years ago, which is spurring up their development today, at what rate are we going to get there? And with what instruments are we likely to develop that? Are we going to wait for others to develop the frameworks that are required for us to tap into it? Or are we also going to do the same? Let's say, if by using AI and its related effects, a job can be done effectively in other parts of the world and at a 30% less cost, what will make us competitive comparatively? If we are unable to do it at the same rate or even faster or even better in this particular case. So those are the questions about industry, about preparedness, about manufacturing, about the other elements that we all need to understand as a people so that we can input it. And even at the personal level, if you, for example, have an AI tool that can draft your letters for you, won't you make your work easier? Imagine some institutions, somebody's job is to draft the letter. A director has to review. Another one has to review before it goes through all of the processes. And somebody's entire job. There's a big finance person who told me that 80% of his work in reviewing the job of his associates and lower officers revolves actually correcting English. If there's a tool that can do that easily for you, depending on the English and the grammatical standards that you want, would that not be easier? Would that mean that you still need the person who's actually drafting the letter in the first place, whose job predominantly is secretarial in nature? Would you still need a person? Or you would need a person for other things? Or the person would have to inculcate into their role some of these tools so that they can do it better? Those are the options on the table for the development of any state, any system. Those days where I needed somebody to do a lot of graphics for you, plus now that you can give, they call it text to image. So you describe the image that you want. It is produced in a very wonderful way for you.
And it looks good. I've seen some examples. Yeah. People are just playing with it. They will just type in some instructions like, give me a picture of an affluent Ghanaian man married to a Caucasian woman sitting in front of their TV at Christmas with their 3 children, thinking of where to go on holiday.
Yeah, you would have had this discussion with a graphic designer. He would go through all of this.
Give you 10 horrible drafts of his own warped image of what you are describing.
Yeah, before you settle on that. I mean, I'm not saying that the graphic designer would automatically do this job, but if you're a graphic designer, why are you not inculcating some of these tools in your work? I hope you get my point.
Absolutely.
Because then it enhances your work. I don't want to pay for some of these tools, but if you've already paid for it, I can pay you something small for you to produce a part for me. That's part of the conversation that's important, which we are refusing generally. And I think students, remember the it's BC, right, issue, where they said they use some AI-generated answers and they were so similar that you could see that it would have been probably projected on the screen for everybody to copy onto their paper or anything like that. On the good part, at least they know that it's possible to actually use AI to generate answers. On the other side, I mean, how do we curb such a thing? And those are the other negatives that come with this.
On the other side, our training is on how to pass exams,
not how to be innovative.
Exactly. So you see, they all got caught.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a very great stage that we all deal with it. Academics are struggling today to find a fine balance between, to what extent, for example, is AI useful in my academic research, for example. So if it's just a summary for me, can I say that that's my own summary because I made inputs into it, or I have to acknowledge that this is a summary done together with? All of those are still very murky areas that are being developed over the period. What I'm not sure of is where we stand as a people and our direction in this case.
Okay. Well, one thing is clear. This global development will impact us. We will not be left out of it. It will impact us. It will affect the value of our city, because the value of your currency is based on how competitive you are as a country. What are you offering the world?
Yeah.
So if the world is solving all its problems, then you and you are still relying on humans, then you have the most expensive production method. You will be even more dependent on the rest of the world for the products you need, because they are producing them cheaper. So import substitution, forget it. What effect will it have on the competitiveness of your education system? What will the value of a Ghanaian be when you go out into the world and you have been taught to do things in an analog way, and everybody else has a robot doing it for them, and you don't have an understanding of how they work? So these things have an implication for us. We have to be ready for it. Let's figure out how. Selorm Branttie joins us. He's Vice President at Imani, Ghana. He's on the phone. Selorm, it's good to have you. Good morning.
Good morning and a happy new year to you.
To you too. I understand that it's not a particularly pleasant time. Our condolences to you on your loss.
Thank you so much.
Indeed.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, but I'm glad you're able to make time to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Selorm, when you think of the typical Ghanaian mindset and you think of how important it is for us to incorporate AI, it feels like an uphill battle. If you go to Kotoka International Airport today, Terminal 2, you want to go and park your car there. There is a guy standing at the turnstile, the machine that you are supposed to touch with your hand for it to produce a ticket, so that the turnstile gate will open and you drive in and park. There is a guy standing there touching it for you. We have a culture that wants to put in a human element into the most automated systems, and we say AI. How easy will it be for us to adapt?
So I believe that, like in most things in the country, or looking at our culture over the last 30 years or so, it's going to be the only way AI is going to go very mainstream, especially in governmental services, which are a very huge bulk of what we do or what we need as a country, is when there is a procurement benefit for someone. However, I expect that a lot of private sector players and a few more innovatively inclined, CEOs, will or have begun to use AI in quite a lot of things. And you see, the thing about AI is like it's a new version of the information age. I mean, the information age as we knew it is over. And with the AI age comes a different information age, because what a lot of people need to understand is that we are getting to a point where we are going to have computers becoming almost sentient. When we say sentient, it means that they are almost going to act like humans. And this is because we have AI has developed to where it is now today, where it can do all the things you were describing earlier, as in generating images and the rest, because of data that people have fed into what we call LLMs, or large language models, or learning systems, where they teach the computers that run these things. They give them a lot of information and feed it systematically. So, for example, if I want to identify, let's say, a Ghanaian, an African, you would have to feed the computer thousands of images of African men and African women, those who are very dark, and then those who are even fair. And then you teach the computer to say that, okay, you have curly hair. This is how our hair looks like. This is how our eyes look like. Our noses are broader. We have thicker lips. Our skin is usually the tone of chocolate or caramel or whatever. You feed lots of that information into the system. So once you do that, then you are now able to build what we call the algorithms or the computer programs that can now look out for some of these things and then give you the kind of outputs that you want. It's been a deliberate exercise that hasn't, as far much as people think it is overnight, it's something that has been done over the course of the last maybe 15 years or so, where people have been building these systems systematically. The issues here, or the issues for us in Ghana and Africa, is that one, we are not building enough data sets to feed into AI models to generate the things that are relevant to our environment. So even now, if you look at a lot of these AI systems, they are more attuned to what will be culturally or informationally represent the Western outlook on things, or an American outlook or a European outlook on things, and you find very little nuance on African views or how we think and how we process our thoughts, our language, our culture, etc. And beyond that, we have to look at it in many ways. So like you were saying, in areas where you would look at different professions and areas that are relevant to our economy as Ghana, for example, in the service industry, in areas where you would just need to run simple services, we have overemphasized the human element just because we like those inefficiencies to exist in order that we gain, or people, some certain parties gain. And these things are not done in the name of efficiency, rather in the name of procurement benefits. Because if we're going to look at our capability or our readiness to run AI systems, Ghana historically has been has been pioneering the adoption of computer-related technology in Africa for decades. We were one of the first to have internet. We were one of the first to really run email systems and all of that in this country. But others have caught up. Now, when it comes to AI, we are at a point where there's a turning point. It's a word that is now being popularly used in other aspects of the economy. But we are at a very critical tipping point where if we decide to really begin to use some of those systems and have a deliberate approach to it, it could dramatically change our environment. The IMF report that Winston and you guys talked about earlier in the morning actually shows or bands Ghana in the lower income country category.
The
where
emerging
our
markets.
preparedness for AI is much on the lower side. In an index of 125 countries, we are in the lower quadrant or the lower third or so. So we are not at a point where our systems are being designed to maximize the use of AI as we should. And other African countries, finally, are put in the emerging markets category, with the most advanced markets being that of Denmark and the US, etc. What we do is that we have the manpower, we have the knowledge, we have the technology, some aspects of the technology available for us to be able to adopt these things. What we need is to have people who would champion it at the national level and create the mentality around it such that people understand that this is the future and it is inevitable. There are a lot of professions that are going to change. I mean, you alluded to one. Clerical work has changed. Back in the day, there used to be people who would be trained at government secretarial school and be at typing pools, and then all they did was type letters and all of that. These days, because of emailing and the rest, and even because of your legal, matters of legality, for example, you would not even want a secretary to type something for you in case they misrepresented what you wrote, because you'd want to supervise it yourself. The areas of legal work, the areas of secretarial work, so many professional aspects of what we do are going to change within the next decade. Even more technical areas like accounting and the rest are going to be more handled more by AI tools than by the professionals themselves, because these areas are far more systematic and they can easily be programmed into computing systems. The areas where AI would complement but would not necessarily take over jobs is more of the mechanical things that people have to do, or artisanal things, or things that would require manual work like cooking and cleaning and things like that. Those are the areas where, to an extent, AI would not be able to interfere more significantly. However, if we look at the structure of our economy and where we want it to go, where we have the service, the service sector being a huge chunk of our GDP, then you are looking at a scenario where if we want to be efficient and if we want to make Ghana gain a lot and also even become a pioneer and a hub for technology change across the whole of Africa, then it is very, very important that from right now, we begin to critically look at how we can position ourselves to become an AI technology center or an AI technology adopter that will be a model to the rest of Africa. And there is every potential for us to do that. However, it all boils down on who we are going to take as champions for that, and what systems we are actually going to put in place to ensure that we do that. Are we going to be able to have to build, or are we going to encourage people, or are we going to facilitate organizations like the NDPC, like the Ghana Statistical Service, and all the MDAs and all of that, to be able to generate the right data sources? But unfortunately, we have missed some of that because of the fact that we have run so many procurement gigs with relation to technology adoption and with relation to automation and digitalization, so much that now it will be even difficult to reconcile lots of data. Take health, for example. In health care systems in Ghana, we have had situations where systems have been imposed on hospitals, which are less efficient than the systems that the hospitals themselves wanted to use, which frequently break down and have them having to change systems. So your medical history, for example, is disparate. 3 years ago, a different system was running your medical history, and it has been shut down because another person has come to take over and needs to put his own system there. So you have all these truncated systems, which means that critical essential data is being lost in old servers, in old systems, and there's been very little in terms of continuity. So that continuity that has brought AI to the extent that the advanced economies are reaping the benefits, we haven't been able to have that because everybody who wants to run a certain sector of the economy likes to come with their own system so that they can make their own money without recourse to the long-term benefits, some of which could have been these things that would have had enough health data that would have been reliable enough that we could even identify diseases that are more local or more attuned to our area of the world. Because even in AI, for example, in the health area, most African diseases cannot be diagnosed easily with AI systems as easily as the ones that affect, let's say, Caucasians, because of the fact that we have refused to build the right data sets for that. Work is being done on that by certain people, but it will still require a lot of heft to be able to bring it to the point where we can have these things predictive enough to determine certain models of our future. And it is in all sectors of our life in Africa that we have looked too much into the short-term benefits of a few people that we are probably on the point where even with this one where we could have all started on an even keel, we are also on the verge of missing out.
I want to bring in Richard Nunekkpeku. He's managing partner at Sospineri Attorney. He joins us on the phone as well. Richard, good morning to you.
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners.
Right. Now, I mean, this is a dicey one. In fact, Ghana has been so slow in developing, laws for emerging technologies. Social media and and so forth being one example. It makes you wonder, when the rest of the world is still figuring it out, exactly how well equipped is Ghana to develop any kind of legal policy framework for something as fast evolving as artificial intelligence?
I think that with all the explanation the other panelists gave, you appreciate the fact that we in Ghana are not leading the development of these innovations. So with that disadvantage, we are unable to understand the full scope of how these technologies work to be able to provide any legislative framework to guide their development. Rather, what we find ourselves doing most of the time is to adopt the technologies as and when they are developed by other people. And at that stage, we significantly do not have any upper hand in influencing how these technologies are developed, taking into account the concerns generally we will have as a country, particularly on issues regarding protection of the ultimate consumer, ensuring that the data that is collected is stored and used in compliance with our data protection laws, etc. So generally, that position of disadvantage has been the of why we have not been able to lead effectively in developing any legal framework to regulate technology generally, and may not be able to do same as far as artificial intelligence is concerned. Because if you begin to see the use cases for AI, it is across all fields and all sectors of our economy. So it will be practically impossible for lawmakers to come to terms as to how they want to regulate something that has the potential to affect basically everything we do as people. Rather, what I think we should begin to do is to begin to look at the use case scenarios and begin to build a national framework or a strategic policy around how we harness and use effectively the benefits of AI and ensure that our people begin to get the greatest benefit out of it, and our economies are scaled, and then the concerns we have related to issues of cybersecurity, fraud, issues of data protection and privacy, etc., can be accommodated. Apart from that, largely we will not be able to use law to influence how these things are designed going forward.
Wow, that's that's actually a sobering thought. Selorm, let me bring you back in and ask the question that's on the minds of many people who are, now getting familiar with the concept of artificial intelligence. Look, we all grew up on science fiction movies, right? So, what is the difference between reality and fantasy here? I mean, should we be afraid of the rise of the machines, or some sort of future matrix that we might all become slaves to? Is it possible for artificial intelligence, by its nature, by its sentient nature, and its ability to remove inefficiencies, is it possible for it to replace us?
And in fact, if you look globally, everybody is thinking about how this will change the world. But like every transformational economy, every transformational, discovery. There was a time when the Pope banned electric lights because he thought that it was blasphemous against God because God made night and day, and therefore the lights were blasphemous. So I think that human beings, as we are, we will adapt to AI systems because the benefits are crazy. You would have a situation where in the future you could even have limbs or artificial limbs that would help people, or chips that would be able to help people with a neural activity. People with strokes will be able to walk and probably do certain things because AI has the benefit of being able to do that. So the benefits are huge. And then with every gift comes a curse. It is all dependent on what we want to define or redefine as ethics and standards. If you remember, about 20 years ago, when the whole debate on cloning started and whether we should clone human beings, and we all decided it was unethical for anybody to clone human beings, to the extent that a Chinese man who'd supposedly cloned a human being was barred from doing any research work, and it was looked down all over the world. I believe that we are at that point where some standards of ethics will ensure that there would be the mainstream AI that would benefit humanity, and work will be done to create that preventative systems or platforms that will ensure that errant AI, technology, would not interfere with our framework of life as we have it now. And those are discussions that are going on. But you see, we are still at the very nascent stage where we do not even know the extent to which this is going to really affect us. For some of us, that is the benefit is that we can sit back in the developing world and watch how some of these things pan out so that we can then tune whatever is there to benefit us as a people. But you see, we should begin to look inside ourselves as a country, as a people, as a nation, and define what we want to do. If we are a country that is benefiting from extractive resources, how are we going to work towards building our AI to ensure that our extractive resources are safeguarded to ensure economic growth? Because one of the things that AI is going to do is that it's going to, there's a possibility that it's going to enhance economic inequality, where those with access to AI tools are going to benefit way better than those without them, which means that in certain professions, if you use or deploy AI tools, your competitive advantage would be such that you would be reaping far more benefits economically than others. So then it means that there will be that inequality gap that will begin to exist. And that will start existing because this world is a globally competitive one. And if we sit down and then we look into the skies, we are going to have a lot of foreign companies who are deploying these AI solutions beat us, the local ones, even to things that we want to do locally. So then we now have to look into ourselves and ask ourselves, how do we use any system or any technology that has been deployed to benefit us as a people in a way that we can now replicate such things across the world and be also innovators, pioneers and things, and then rather be a net exporter of the technology and the innovation and the solutions, especially the solutions in our close market in Africa, and make use of things like the Africa Free Zone area and the rest to ensure that we build our own homegrown technology, because now it's an open field and it's like the wild, wild west. Whoever is able to do the best or get the best impact wins. So what are we doing to create those winners here? And I think that should be the focus, because fear does nothing but make you paranoid. But optimism does everything to make you take advantage of the situations that exist and then be the leader or be the vanguard.
All right. Well, I want to say a big thank you to our two guests today. Maybe I'll give the final word here to Richard in the last minute or so. Look, what should be step one for government of Ghana if they want to be the spearhead of any proactive action to make us more prepared for AI to become part of our daily lives? What should be step one from your perspective?
I think the first step is building understanding of how these technologies work, because currently there's a lot of misinformation and misconception about how AI works. So, for instance, AI is not a product. AI is a technology that is being used to develop and influence how services and products are developed across various sectors. So, first thing we must do as a country is to understand the full extent and scope of how these technologies are influencing things we are concerned about. Because it is from that standpoint that we'll be able to properly put in policies and programs that harnesses the full benefits of these technologies. Because without understanding, trust me, we'll put in legislation, we'll put in policies that do not address the real uses and concerns for these technologies that are emerging. And I'm not sure we've seen the end of it, but we have the potential. But currently, we do not have the capacity to be able to do anything as far as legislating the development and use of these technologies are concerned.
That's a thought to end on. Thank you very much. Richard Nunekkpeku is managing partner at Suspinary Attorney. Selorm Branttie, who you heard from earlier, is vice president at Imani, Ghana. Thank you both so much for joining us on the phones. Sobering thoughts there.